Salutations, everyone. Welcome back to Total Warhammer 3. I'm Lord Forend, and we are here with another guide for the Empire playlist, as well as the larger Total Warhammer 3 guide series. If you haven't seen the other videos in this, you might want to check them out. Today, we are going to be talking about buildings in the Empire economy, as in what to build, when to build it, and why you want to build it. So we're going to be using Franz as the example. We're not going to get into specialized buildings, but he has access to a lot, so we'll see. So the first thing to note is the Empire has decent ports. Yes, there are special landmarks and stuff, port-wise, but overall, it's one of the better port factions. You get growth and money. Basically, when you can upgrade and build the port, build and upgrade the port, it's almost never wrong. Now, the Empire has access to a decent basically resource building chain for all your resources. They're all fairly good. They all generate decent money and decent trade goods. You're not going to have any that are unbelievable, but overall usually worth building unless you need something like garrisons in it as well. In terms of, we'll get back to military stuff later. In terms of your infrastructure buildings, this is where you're going to make your money. So the first one is your fields. This is your standard growth casualty replenishment. If you've watched some of my other stuff, you will know I mentioned that the Empire does struggle with casualty replenishment early on. It is pretty much designed to be a faction that keeps getting attacked in raided, and then has to rebuild and fight back. The landed estate here, this whole farm tree, helps with that. The growth rate is really good. I actually love to put one of these in every capital settlement if I can, because your minor settlements tend to be raided and destroyed. This will help you rebuild the minor settlements a lot faster. The other option is only build this in your minor settlements, as in not capitals with walls, and it will help build up. And if you lose it, you don't lose any money either. The downside is you lose the casualty replenishment rate, but it's particularly good if you're fighting drawn out battles and wars over the same territory. It's quite a nice growth building. Overall, nothing special, nothing negative though. Now, the next unit is where the Empire's economy starts to shine. This is your industry line. This is a one-turn unit, costs 1,000 gold, and gives you 250 a turn, meaning it pays back in 4 turns. It is one of the better industry buildings in the game in terms of making money. You want to stick this basically everywhere. That's not going to be taken out in 4 turns, and you'll appreciate it. Now, special note though, I wouldn't necessarily build it early on in capital settlements. Building it in minor settlements, even if they're tier 1 or 2, is worth it. But you probably have better stuff to stick in capital settlements. But late game, every settlement should have one of these buildings, barring landmarks and ports and stuff. Now, as it goes up, it gets slightly less efficient. This one is 4 turns. This is more towards 5, and this is clearly 5 turns. Now, again, 500 gold is no joke, especially multiplied by the other bonuses the Empire gets. Really good industry building. Build it everywhere. You'll make a lot of money. The Empire thrives on money, though, so definitely get as much money as you can. Now, the next one, if you're used to the Empire before, you'll notice this is slightly different. First off, there is no recruitment of the Witch Hunter unit in it. This is your public control building. The upkeep is a nice bonus. Basically, this gives you control. It can give you up to 10, meaning you can handle lots of unrest without collapsing. Definitely needed at higher difficulties with public order problems. It also does decrease upkeep of your armies, which is really nice if you put it on one of your frontline settlements, which are more likely to be attacked, and then put your armies there. You can save a significant chunk of cash with it. Fully upgraded, you'll save 15, which is no joke. And more importantly, though, the recruitment cost will be 15 less. You want one of these in the region where you're going to put all your military buildings. So one philosophy for the Empire is concentrate your recruitment buildings in 1 or 2 regions. Everywhere else makes you money. Great building for this. Make sure you build it probably in capital settlements so that you can actually get to tier 4 and get the recruitment cost. Oddly enough, tier 3 doesn't even have a less version of the recruitment. It's only at tier 4. Now, the last one is a unique-ish building for the Empire. It's your transportation roads. It's kind of an odd building, and honestly, I hope it gets changed at some point. It gives you increased movement range, which is nice because the Empire, especially if you're in the Empire, has a lot of territory to defend. So being able to run around helps a lot. The local recruitment duration helps when you're starting to recruit high-level artillery, war machines, or cav units. But more importantly, the global recruitment duration reduction. This really means you can, if you've got a lot of money, which the Empire should have mid to late game, just use global recruitment rather than local recruitment to build your armies. You're then able to build top tier units on the front line. So one of these or two of these in your frontline settlements, especially if you're fighting over an area over and over and over, or fighting one of the tide events late on, the late game invasion stuff. Very useful for that. I would not necessarily build this early on in the game, though. Don't worry about the income from buildings. It's a nice bonus. Focus on the other stuff, the movement, but more importantly, the recruitment duration reductions. It's pretty unique in that sense and has a unique purpose at which it's very good. Now, let's get into the other stuff. We're going to skip recruitment for the moment, and we're going to do defense. So, the Empire, this is a capital settlement. Defensive buildings are very good. Now, this kind of sounds like a joke because it's the Empire, but they're actually really solid. You get fairly good infantry units, fully upgraded. You get halberdiers, crossbowmen, great swords, Empire Knights, and mortars. One of these can hold out against, if played by a player, can hold out even against very strong AI armies. Against a player army, it struggles a bit, but it's really costly to attack an Empire capital with walls. You can end up with like 15 or 16 garrison units combined with the baseline here. One of these, as you can see, you have great garrisons already, although to be fair, this is Altdorf. Combined with this, though, it's almost untakeable. You need 2 armies to take the settlement, and even then it might fail. Now, in minor settlements, obviously you don't have walls, but it is still worth building a garrison, specifically the level 2 garrison stuff, in your minor settlements only once you have built either growth or industry. Basically, if it's a tier 3 minor settlement and it's producing a lot of money, build a garrison in it. It'll dissuade enemies from attacking it, and it can actually defeat small to moderate strength armies on its own. It's really good at that. Now, in terms of your protection building, this is an interesting one. If you're in the Empire, Franz, or the Dark Lady of Nuln-Wissenlin there, von Draken, fairly useful because you have the Trickster around and the Trickster cults. Outside of that, though, I am not the biggest fan of this building. It is a cheap and fairly effective way of controlling corruption in your settlement, and again, fully upgraded in neighboring settlements. It detects Skaven undercities and reduces plagues. The increased plague duration is quite useful if you're fighting Nurgle or Skaven. Outside of that, though, it's not particularly useful. You've got better buildings. So against Skaven, the Trickster, or Nurgle, otherwise pretty much ignore. And if you're having the control issues here, just go build one of these tap rooms. It's basically the same. Later on, it can't match the control, so don't build it for control. But if you need a little bit more, you could build it. In terms of recruitment, the Empire is divided into 2 very clear distinctions. You have your base infantry and range units, complete with 1 or 2 ranged cav units in your red lines. Now, the unique thing about the Empires is that they only go up to tier 3 here, meaning you can stick this in a minor settlement and still have access to all your decent range and melee units. However, unless you can defend those minor settlements, don't build it in the minor settlements. So early on, you want to build this in your capital settlement and you want to upgrade it to tier 3. Now, the nice thing about the Empire at the moment is that you combine infantry and range into the barracks line. Now, you don't have access to the gun units. That's separate. That's the shooting range. But you have access to the crossbowmen and huntsmen, which are, for the early game, good enough. So I really do like this building. I do like the rework and re-examining of the Empire. Build this basically one in every region early game. Late game, you really only need one in your empire because you're going to be using global recruitment anyway. It's good. It's not the world's most expensive military building, which is nice. It also unlocks access to empire captains, which you should probably have about one of those in every army anyway. Great unit for fighting and killing things. I'm not going to go into units. That's a separate video though. Now, your shooting range here, the level 1 Free Company and Pistoliers are terrible. Honestly, if you are building this to train them, you really should re-examine what units you're using in armies. However, tier 2 is where it starts to shine. Handgunners and Outriders are significantly better. A couple units of handgunners in an army played properly, deployed right with flanks, will pay for themselves. Outriders, slightly less, but if you like skirmishing and cavalry, you can. It does give access to witch hunters. I personally don't love the witch hunter unit. Maybe one in army. Don't build more than one in army. There's almost no point. Use them to target enemy lords, but probably you have better heroes. Now, tier 3 is when it gets good again, this line. So tier 1's bad, tier 2 is better, tier 3 is great. You get access to the Hochland long rifles. Think very long range skirmish unit, very low numbers, but great at targeting lords, heroes, mages, or powerful archers. It outranges basically every other range unit that's not artillery, which makes it very useful. The Ironsides here are an upgraded version of handgunner. So once you get them, basically build these, don't build low-level handgunners. And the Outriders, you get grenade launchers that can kill lots of weak units. Honestly, though, don't use them. So basically, you build this to get handgunners. You build this for everything else. Now, for your advanced buildings, there are 3 of them. Some are better than others. The first one is how you're supposed to reduce corruption, the Shrine of Sigmar. Gives you access to the Flagellants, which I don't like particularly. They have their place, as well as the Warrior Priest. Now, this is one you might want to build fairly early on in a capital settlement to get access to the Warrior Priests. Warrior Priests are a very good source of early game replenishment for your armies, as well as access to quasi-magic without having to build, like, basically a mage guild type thing. Obviously, we can't see this here because the Reichland has a unique one, but there is another College of Magic that you can build, and you get access to all the various mages, which is also a purple line, but we can't see it here. Warrior Priest, though, tier 2 isn't that much greater. Yes, it will purge all the corruption in a territory, but if you've got enough corruption, you need -10 corruption reduction, you're better off spending this 3,000 gold to build an army and go kick out the other army spreading corruption. The upgrade to the Warrior Priest and rank, forget about it. Only build this to get the replenishment early or to control corruption if you're failing at everything else. The next one we have here is the stable line. The Empire's cavalry units are not the world's best. However, it is worth mentioning that this does give local recruitment capacity. These other ones do not. Building one of these in whichever territory you're going to train your armies in, because the Empire wants to specialize, remember, is worth it. It will allow you to raise more troops. It also gives you access to your cav units. And fully upgraded, well, second levels +2, fully upgraded global recruitment capacity +1. The Empire, again, late game wants to use global recruitment capacity, and this really helps with that. Worth building almost everywhere you can. Late game, you will appreciate it. Don't build too many of them early on, though. Now, the next one here is your war machines, basically. You have access initially to war wagons and mortars, as well as the engineer. Honestly, you can get away without using the engineer hero unit, but if you bring one, you're going to specialize more into artillery. Tier 1, mortars are the way to go. Tier 2, you can build great cannons, but honestly, I tend to stick with mortars, meaning level 2 here is not the world's best. Do be aware it does increase your research rate a bit, which is nice. It's just a lot of money and time to invest, as well as a building slot to get research and engineers. Now, tier 3 is where, or tier 4 technically, but the third level is where it starts to shine. Hellblaster volley guns, Hellstorm rocket batteries, and land ships. If you get to this point, you are now becoming a powerhouse. This is what makes the Empire a powerful faction. You want to get this. You want to get this as soon as possible. Basically, your first capital settlement should build this as soon as it hits tier 4, which to be fair is going to be about turn 50 or 60 at the fastest, unless you specialize in growth. Once you do, you want to start putting 1 or 2 of these in every single army. You will thank me later. Tier 5, you get access to the high level units. You get steam tanks. Steam tanks are very good. They have their place though. Don't build too many of them or bring them. I like the one with the volley gun better. Now, as I said earlier, you also have another one, Conclave of Wizards and stuff. We don't have this here because the Reikland's a special one. So we're going to jump over to another save file and I'll show you that. Okay, here we are. We're at the Cult of Sigmar, Volkmar's starting settlement, turn 1. Here's the Wizards Conclave. It's available at tier 2, which means you have access to battle wizards fairly early on. You have access to all the different types. If you want to know which ones I prefer, Bright, I think the other one's called Jade and Gold, and Celestial are my favorites. I ignore Amber, Gray, and whatever the other one's called. Now, it also gives you a garrison of a Bright Wizard, which is nice because not many factions get garrisons from non-garrison buildings. Tier 2, you get Winds of Magic Reserve per turn, armies in local province. This really helps on defense if you're using mages, as well as upgraded mages, meaning they become more powerful quicker. Every level here gets you another capacity, or at least at the beginning it does. Level 2, another capacity, another battle wizard, more magic. It unlocks the Luminarch of Hysh. Honestly, though, if you're building this line just to get access to that, I would probably recommend you build the Forges unit just because you get more versatile war machines. Worth building somewhere in the Empire so that you can do global recruitment as well as have access to the wizards. Be aware, though, that the hero recruitment of wizards as well as the others is not global. Meaning if you want to recruit that and put in the army, you do have to build this towards your front lines or wherever you're raising armies. Great unit, fairly useful. Honestly, though, I prefer the Forge line myself. Anyway, that's the Empire. Again, you can see here at the resource building is decent as well as the port. Anyway, that is the Empire. Hopefully this helps you with the buildings. You're going to want a lot of these industry buildings. That's my advice, as well as one of these in your starting settlement. Hopefully this helps you. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe. And if you're still sticking around after that line, go check out the other playlists and my other guides. Hopefully they will help you, as well as leave me your thoughts on the buildings too. What is your favorite combo of buildings? Which building line do you ignore? Which one do you always build? Leave them below. You can help me or help other players as well. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.